What's your read on the Cardinals? What, as much as we put into spring training evaluations, where do you think they're looking strong? Where do you think they're looking all right? And where do you think they may be weak?
Well, they're a better team than I thought they were before I came down here. Their pitching depth is considerable. Now, the bullpen, especially the right-handed side, even left-handed side has got many candidates. You could probably find 18 or 19 guys that could be in the bullpen. Well, maybe not that many, but you could have 8 or 10 in the bullpen rather than 6 or 7, which is what they're going to have. And they're with Walker, their offense is going to be better. If you didn't know his background, you'd say, "Oh, this guy's going to be on your team." Well, where is he going to be on your team? You're going to bench Edman or Donovan to play him? No, of course not. He needs to play at Memphis and be ready when something happens. He knocked in 4 today. He had a double, triple, and a single. And the outfield, the outfielders have been. Carlson had a good game today. O'Neill and Nootbaar. O'Neill's back. Nootbaar won't be back for a few more days yet. Their starting pitching's been good. Matz was good today. Flaherty has been okay. Wainwright and Miklasz haven't been here. And Hudson's been pretty good. So has Thomas. And Montgomery's been okay. Now, do they have the number 1 or 2 guys at the top to match up with some of the other teams? That's what we don't know. Maybe they don't.
That's right. But, I like the competition, and I guess because the competition was somewhat altered by Jordan Walker's strong showing. What are your odds? You didn't ever set odds, so I don't know why I'm saying that. But what are your odds as of now? His chances of opening with the big club.
As of now, they're terrific. With 10 or 11 games to go. Even when he's not hitting, he hit some balls hard again today. Even when he's not hitting, he can run himself to a base hit because he's so fast for a big man. This is something that, not to compare him to Albert in very many categories, but Albert couldn't run. And this guy can fly for a guy who's 6'6". He beats out double play balls. He beats out infield hits. He'll never have a really long slump because he can run out a hit. Now, how do you deploy the outfielders? I don't know, because 2 of them basically haven't been here, and O'Neill and Nootbaar.
Right.
And now O'Neill will either play tomorrow or have one more work day than play 2 in a row. He's going to get 2 games of the next 3 here. And Nootbaar, Japan is now on its way to Miami if they're not already there. And they will play Sunday night. And they're likely to play Tuesday night in the championship. So, Monday and Tuesday, whatever the dates are, but Tuesday's the championship game, and it looks like Japan and U.S. or Venezuela are shaping up to be in that game. And Ohtani, oddly enough, will be on proper rest for a third start in the WBC. Now, granted, they have traveled many thousands of miles to get here. Their first games were all in Japan. But the U.S. does not have anybody that can match up with him.
No.
Or nobody has matched up with him.
Plus, that 19 or 20-year-old dude is amazing, too. I mean, Japan's got – I think they got – because of the overwhelmingly good pitching, I think they're the best club I've seen in this because of that pitching more than anything.
Well, Darvish is just a guy. He's just one of their guys.
Great point. A WBC-related question: the injury to Edwin Diaz after Puerto Rico defeated the Dominican Republic, which was just a huge game in both of those nations. And Diaz is just celebrating, hopping up and down, and then he shreds his patellar tendon, and looks like he's going to be gone for the year. And the Mets, he's a hell of a closer. He really is.
He's the best in the league.
Yeah. He is. And then, there were outcries immediately about, well, that's why you can't put these players in the WBC. I happen to disagree, but what's your opinion?
Well, I'm okay with them being there, but the teams will take a different look at it maybe 3 years from now, whenever the resumption of this is going to take place. and be maybe a little reluctant to send the best of the best to those clubs. You can control a little bit how those guys are used. You have to, the pitching coaches and the managers check in with you from time to time, I think. But like Miklasz has only pitched 2 innings for the U.S. team, and I think it's something that should not be played at this point of the spring. Previous WBCs have been played earlier in the spring, where players then resume their work with their own teams and have a couple weeks to get ready. They're going to come back here. The guys that go all the way, that go the distance, they're going to be back 5 days. And then the season starts, they leave north. The season will start like 6-7 days later, but Goldschmidt and Arenado haven't been here forever. And other teams are in the same boat, So Lindor with the Mets, those guys. So I don't like it in the time slot it's in now. Either play it earlier in February or play it after the season's over. I know there's complications. Guys have played a long season already, but maybe there's a way that you could have a competition with the teams that aren't playing in the World Series and have it right after the World Series or something. Or I don't know, but I don't like the timing of where it is now because players have been gone from their clubs for so long. And if you played it earlier, before spring training even started for the most part, then they wouldn't be gone for so long.
Well, I seriously, it's such an excellent observation because if you start the WBC as you suggested a couple of weeks earlier, 3 weeks earlier, I don't know, but your point is the most prevalent point is what you said about when these players come back, they've got to have ample time to be with their team in their setting to get ready for the opener. This shouldn't be a rush job. So you're so right about that, Commish. And I don't know why. I don't know why they don't do it or why they didn't do it that way this year.
I mean, Edman hasn't played yet. Well, just consider that he just flew 16 hours a couple of days ago to be here. He'll probably play tomorrow. And O'Neill, he only flew from Phoenix to here. He didn't fly from Tokyo to here, but nonetheless, he had to travel and hasn't been around. I just think there's another way to do this. I guess a third way is to have it during the All-Star break, but that's too long a time off for the Major League season for these guys to have. It isn't like hockey where you can, have an Olympic year and take 2 weeks off at that time, which they've done, and that's worked out pretty well.
Yep.
But baseball isn't like that. You can't do it that way because it makes the season way too long. You're playing way deep into November then. You don't want that.
Commish, a couple of roster-based questions for you. Number one, Zach Thompson, obviously looks like the primary left-hander in the bullpen. If they decide to keep two, who's got the inside track to be the second lefty?
I would say Packy Naughton right now because, first of all, he's been here all the time, whereas Cabrera and Romero, Cabrera's back now, Romero's still pitching for Mexico, are not. And Naughton has probably he's been seen more than Misevich and Suarez, who have been here in camp. So I would say Naughton has the edge. He can get right-handers out of it. He's throwing harder than he had before. He seems to have a better changeup and a better slider. So I think those are your two guys. And then the rest of the bullpen would be right-handed. Now, that's a tough one to answer, which right-handers are going to be in there. But after Gallegos, Helsley, and Hicks, I don't know. Woodford, probably. I mean, he's kind of your sixth starter.
Right.
Is Palante in there? Well, maybe. Is Stratton in there? He hasn't got any options left. He's been good. Rodriguez, the Rule 5 guy, throws hard. He's got great stuff. And if you don't keep him, you lose him because he's a draft guy. Those are the rules. There's many, many candidates here for these jobs.
Verhagen's look good, right?
Verhagen's look good. Even the guy they sent out from Columbia kind of early in camp, he gets in that game the other night, and he blows through Trout, Goldschmidt, and Arenado like they weren't even there.
I know. He is something else. And he would be, I think you and I would refer to him as a shooter, right? Big shooter.
Oh, yeah. But he's been around a little bit, and he's bounced around. But, he dominated those three hitters.
He did. Oh man, he's fun to watch. He impressed everybody. So I'm sure we'll see him this season up in St. Louis. When I ask you, what are they going to do with DeJong? I'm not talking about, well, that's it, we're cutting ties, but he's played so little. Do you think the injured list is a likely destination?
I think it's legitimate. He's had first a shoulder and then a back injury this spring. I don't think that would be too much finagling to put him on there. He's not playable now, and they're only, less than 2 weeks from the regular season. There's no, now that Edman's back, there's no playing time for DeJong anymore. There was when Edman was gone. That was the idea, to play DeJong virtually every day, get him 40, 50 at-bats rather than the 13 that he has, and see what you got. They still don't know, and nor does any other team know that might have interest in him. So then I think you put him on the injured list, which is fair, and then give him a good long rehab at Memphis because he needs to have some at-bats. And maybe by May 1st, you got a better idea what's going on here. And if you can move him, or if you think he belongs on your team, they really don't have a backup infielder. Other than Donovan and or Gorman, one of those guys is considered your backup infielder, I guess. Like Gorman's going to play third base when Arenado doesn't, and Donovan's going to play second base most of the time, but could play other positions. But DeJong would have been their Swiss Army knife in the infield, because now they're going to probably keep Alec Burleson for a little bit, just to have another hitter, the left-handed hitter on the bench.
They probably get
by. To play,
yeah. I'm sorry for interrupting. They'll probably get by with what they have, assuming that DeJong would be, ready to go relatively soon. But do you think there's a chance they'd have to cover his absence, if there will be an absence? Is there anyone on the 40-man that could just plug in for a while? And Mason Wynn is not the answer, because they want him playing every day in Memphis, as they should. But is there somebody that
Donovan played shortstop yesterday? That's going to be the issue. Do they have a backup shortstop? And it looks like Donovan's the guy. DeJong would have been the guy, but Donovan will be the guy. He played okay there yesterday. That isn't his strongest position. Second base is now. I don't think they have anybody else in their system. They've had a few other guys up around here this year, but we're okay. Wynn's been spectacular, but you can't say, we're going to keep him for 2 weeks until DeJong's okay, then send him out. No. You send him out, whatever day in March he goes out, and then he plays every day for Memphis. And I think when camp began, they weren't sure if he was even Memphis ready, offensively. He could be starting in Springfield. I don't think that's the case anymore. He's going to be at Memphis.
Commish, I really do like and respect Ali Marmol and think he's done a terrific job overall, but I was a little startled by the proclamation that we're having an open competition at catcher, behind Contreras. And the one guy that is supposed to be the direct competitor to Kisner never plays. So can you explain Barrera? I'm talking about. Can you explain?
I think they know what they have. He's a veteran guy. He was with Washington last year. He's okay. They keep looking for Kisner to be better, I think. And today he had a pretty good game. He had some good at-bats. He walked. He had a hit. It looked like he caught all right. I think the staff likes him. I don't see any reason to change that position at the beginning of the year. Now, maybe when you have, because Barrera would go to Memphis to be with Herrera, who's maybe their catcher I wouldn't say he's the future anymore, because Contreras is signed for 5 years, but he'll be around. He's a pretty good player. I think Kisner deserves that chance to start the season with him. I think he's been getting a little better, but boy, he's still hitting. Look at my numbers here.
Buck 40 maybe?
148, yeah. Left 5 guys on base today, but he did have some good at-bats, I thought. Better at-bats anyway. But Barrera, you're right, has not played very much, and he didn't get in the game today. I would think since Kisner had 4 at-bats today, Barrera will probably play, I would think, Sunday, because he says Contreras is going to play again tomorrow. Contreras played today, but he didn't. He DH'd, but he will catch tomorrow again. then Barrera may be your catcher Sunday in Port St. Lucie, Florida.
Commish, it sounds like you're wrestling with a cold of some sort. I hope you feel better. I hope everything's okay. Or
I feel
allergies.
okay. I guess a little scratchy voice. I'm sorry. I feel fine.
All right. Well, you always are. I'm just checking on you a little bit.
All right.
Look forward to talking to you next week. And as always, it's a pleasure speaking with you.
Right. I'll be back from Florida. I'll be back at my first full day back, so I'll be ready to go. Yes.
All right. That's great. That's great. Well, safe travels then.
Thank you, sir.
Take care, my friend. That's our friend Rick Hummel, Hall of Fame baseball writer. You know, the thing about Packy Naughton, am I thrilled that, Packy Naughton, say, is the next best thing they can do for a second lefty? But every time I say that, it compels me to go back and look how he did exclusively as a reliever last season. And he was actually pretty damn good. In other words, you don't base the bullpen decision on that cockamamie idea they had to use him as a starting pitcher there for a while. Just erase that from your mind because it's not relevant. He was good as a relief pitcher last year. Since he's a lefty, and I like to go with old school references, I'm not saying he's Sparky Lyle, but he was pretty good. He wasn't not the peak form Jesse Orozco, no, but he was pretty good. So I don't have a problem with that. I don't think Cabrera should be on the big club. I think he's got to go. He's got to reestablish himself. He had the right to go to the WBC. He pitched in one game, one inning, and this is a guy who really had something to prove to the Cardinals this year in spring training. But he hardly got anything done in spring training because he raced off to the WBC, where he mostly sat around. And I don't know. I just don't see a guy who takes his situation seriously enough. I just don't. I don't think he deserves to be rewarded with the roster spot, at least at the start of the season. Look, he's an exciting talent, but that's really not the point. His temperament was pretty bad last year. I'll use the cliche, he's just kind of a tired act, and he is. And he needs to regain credibility and trustworthiness. It's as simple as that.
There is a factor of watching how he was, what's the right word, moved around at the end of the season last year, not brought back, but there was talk of him being brought back, and they didn't. And it's like, well, there's something going on that they just don't like about him. That's just.
Well, he's incredibly immature,
yeah.
And the veterans on that team. The Cardinals have excellent leadership with their veterans. They're fair-minded guys. They'll help any teammate, but there's a certain standard. If a guy's not taking his obligation seriously and he's putting himself in front of the team's interest, and he's being selfish, and these volatile mood swings, I'm telling you, I know the way the Cardinals roll down there, and I don't know who would go in and say it. It'd be a couple of them. You go there and say, look, man, we're better off without this guy right now until he gets his head together. And they do have a very good leadership dynamic in that way. They really, truly do. Look at some of those veterans. I mean, you know who they are. Mm-hmm. They set a standard, and they expect teammates to try to reach that standard or conduct themselves to that standard. And that team has a lot of fun. They're not uptight. They have colorful characters. No one's saying it's got to be this serious, grim occupation. But if a guy's not pitching very well and he's also being unselfish and unreliable and doesn't even seem to think he's in any kind of challenge to prove himself, send him to Memphis to get his act together. So that's how I feel about that.